Hi, I'm Scarlett Evans. I'm here with Emmanuel Kahembwe, who is the CEO for VDE. Emmanuel, can you start by telling me about VDE? What is the organization? When did it get set up? What's your mission?
Okay, VDE is an association, first of all. It's let's say it's a technical scientific association set up roughly about 130 years ago, so it's very old.
Wow, okay.
Its origins are in electricity as a technology, ensuring its safety, back during the days when the debates around electricity were, AC versus DC, electricity versus gas, that kind of discussion. And fast forward to today, I guess we're repeating that origin story again with AI. There was a time when people said that AI is the new electricity, and just as we've done with electricity, we're kind of in the process of, again, trying to make AI safe. So when I said that we're an association at the highest level, a non-profit, we are the largest technical scientific association in Europe, and underneath us we house testing and certification institutes. We have standardization bodies underneath us, and I guess we approach our work as, we have a mandate to safely introduce new technology to European citizens. Very broad scope, starting off in electricity, but then over time spanning out to everything electric adjacent. So now we're the Association for Electrical, Electronic and Information Technologies. So you can imagine the scope and span of our activities.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, mainly focused in Europe, but also with a significant international footprint.
So what does that encompass though? How do you make these technologies safe for consumers?
So it's a mixture of, again, harkening back to the origin story, it's a mixture of going around and talking to key stakeholders. This is, policymakers, legislative branches, and then talking to industry. As part of our standardization work, is getting industry around the table to decide on a direction where we decide that we're going to responsibly develop towards and responsibly deploy. And we, on one hand, translate our industrial work into insights and position papers to be consumed by policymakers and legislators. And then the feedback from there, in conjunction with the roundtables that we do hold with industry, into technical documentation, standards for industry to follow, basically, so that everybody's we agree on a way forward, and crucially we agree on a responsible way forward, mainly so that we can open up a market in a slightly different form to the way things have been done, for example, in the internet space so far, because for a long time VDE was dealing with a lot of physical products. You think about fridges, toasters, TVs. These are things that you can touch, so the industries within there, it's kind of obvious to them that because you're building physical infrastructure, everybody has to agree on how things should work together. The digital space has been a bit of a Wild West because everyone can do whatever they want, and especially with AI, which is considered now essential, an essential technology by many states. It's critical that we bring that type of thinking that we have in the physical world around safety, around guardrails, around responsible innovation to the digital world, and specifically to technologies such as AI.
And you're right, it's interesting because something like AI, as you're saying, it's intangible, it's not something that you can see, and so I think that I don't always think that safety in AI or responsibility in AI is something that the layman connects, really. I know it's a massive topic within the industry itself, but I think that, I guess it's not something that we really consider because it's not this tangible thing, and it's hard for for us to, I guess, kind of wrap our heads around it. But it is this whole, as we shift increasingly online, as more and more devices go online, things like cybersecurity are only getting more interesting. Not interesting, but important. But then also from what you're saying, it's also the regulation around this kind of thing, the standardization. We're at the kind of beginning of a lot of these technologies becoming quite massive in different industries. So is that also something that you've been, I guess, discussing at this summit, but also just seeing in the industry more widely?
So this summit has provided, I guess, an ability to kind of have a forum, I guess, around, with some of the key stakeholders that we see carrying out, important work within the AI space. I had a panel earlier on where we had folk from NIST, which has an AI risk management framework. We had folk from NATO who have their own responsible AI framework, and Canada and the UK. And it's, again, building this forum to kind of sit around and say, how are we going to work with, how are we going to responsibly use this technology? Because it goes beyond just the borders of one country, beyond the jurisdiction of one country. And crucially, for businesses, they need to have a clear direction on how to approach the technology, because if one regime is saying one thing, another regulatory regime is saying another thing, especially for small businesses, compliance and thinking about the cost of compliance specifically, could be something that prevents them from innovating in particular directions. So, in a roundabout way, the kind of work that we've been doing, especially even at this forum, has been just starting the dialogue between the different camps to be like, let's, let's come together, form regulations that are complementary, and form standards that industry can follow, and know that if they conform to it in the UK, it works in Europe, it works in the US. So everybody has an idea that when we talk about AI safety and responsible AI, when we talk about things like transparency and accountability, that we're talking about the same things. A lot of times people use these words, and they're a little bit like buzzwords, I guess, but they all mean different things. So our job, I guess, is in a way trying to bring together this common understanding. And once we have this common understanding, yes, we can decide to legislate differently, but we know we're talking about the same thing. And that is literally the first step. That's a lot of our work in standardization, is coming to some notion of a shared understanding of exactly what we are trying to regulate or standardize.
Yeah. It's almost funny that this technology is so huge, and yet there's still this discrepancy in understanding what it really means when we talk about it in different industries, in different nations. I think it's a really rich subject matter, and I think there's a lot more that I'd like to know, but I'm a bit conscious of time, so I'm just going to ask, I guess, looking forward at the next 12 months, what do you, I suppose, anticipate to see for VDE and also the industry more widely, and also what do you sort of hope to see moving forward?
So within our work, we have several initiatives. So we have an industrial AI standard, which was gathering industry together to primarily starting off with the European industry, so all the big players. We have about 1.2 trillion worth of European industry behind the development of an industrial AI standard, which works more as a communication mechanism, so that we can communicate let's say, the abstract kind of values that people judge AI systems by, transparency, accountability, to at least standardize those, so that make sure that when across industry people are talking about transparency, accountability, privacy, that we understand that we have a common understanding, broad-based understanding across industry. So this is an initiative that's ongoing right now. We're in the second iteration, expanding it out, and we're hoping that this becomes, interestingly, it's based off of, if you've seen the energy efficiency label, that tells you how energy efficient you build like your house is. You see it on a fridge, you see it on a house, you see it on a light bulb. You don't know the details of the standards that underpin that, but you are able to make a judgment about how energy efficient your light bulb is. And we have basically taken that thinking and transferred it over to AI and say, let's have a similar label that measures things like transparency, accountability, privacy on the higher level. And then the main work within this group has been to map this high level thinking and the high level view that customers and consumers think about with regard to AI to the conformity tests and the requirements, the core observables that companies can actually measure. So over the last 3-4 years, we've carried out this mapping from these high-level values using a communication mechanism that people are familiar with, the energy efficiency type A to G kind of, and then mapping it down to concrete tests and documentation requirements and things that people have to comply to on the organizational level. And so the idea there is the hope that companies can do what they're comfortable doing, which is providing documentation, carrying out the conformity tests, and they know exactly what to test for. but we have a way of communicating all of this to the naive user who only cares about how private or how reliable or how fair their AI system is. So they're able to make those judgments at a high level without knowing the intricate details of how the AI system was tested. So that's one initiative. And adjacent to that, we have an AI, this is launched in conjunction with the German government, which is AI Quality and Testing Hub, set up in Hesse in Frankfurt, and its job is going to be to take companies that do not know what they're doing with regard to AI, who don't know how to approach the regulatory landscape, don't know what conformity looks like, and guide them to the process of making their products compliant with incoming legislation. And so that's a separate entity in conjunction with the standardization work. And within this entity, yes, they will talk about standards, but crucially, it's a path towards certification, towards having a product that's certified to be sold within the European market. And then the last thing that is probably worth talking about is that AI Trust Alliance. As VDE, we're, on one hand, we help build technological ecosystems, but our job, once the ecosystem exists, goes back to testing and certification. So the AI Trust Alliance is designed to be a body to kind of house the work that's done, for example, with industrial standards, so that we have a home where industry comes together to update the standard as the technology moves forward. Driven by industry, and we can handle the cross-communication between industry and legislators and policymakers. So I hope that kind of gives a broad
No, it does.
overview
It's, again, I feel like it's a dense area, and it sounds like you've kind of got your work cut out for you,
yes.
But it sounds like very worthwhile and very needed. I wish we had longer, but thank you so much for talking to us.
No problem.
Good luck with the next stage of the company, and also, yeah, have a great rest of the summit.
Thank you.